All right, hello, Shauna Marie Fisher here. I'm with my fun little pop-up live. I'm going to see if I can pull up my Facebook page because sometimes it doesn't like me to do that. But here it's letting me do it, and I actually have my volume off so you can't hear dual Shauna, which is amazing. So I'm doing a surprise pop-up live. You probably see my friend Lee Walzak here. Hopefully I can say his name right. I should know it by now, right? Since I've known Lee for a while now. So anyway, we are just doing a little pop-up live. I thought it'd be fun because we have an event coming up, and then I wanted to share the magic and all the wonderful work that Lee does because he is amazing. So he is a psychic medium. So and it's amazing. All he connects people with their loved ones in spirit. Hey, Kathy, and hey, Michelle. So yeah, so he connects people, and then hey, Lizzie. This is so cool. So Lee's streaming on his page, so I can see people on his page too, which is really awesome. So super fun that StreamYard lets you do that. I'm like amused by the simplest of things. So, so there's that. I'm like a big kid, literally. So anyway,
it's awesome.
Right? So yay, woohoo! So welcome, Lee. So yes, so I would love for you just to share like a little bit about how what you do and like what inspired you to really start mediumship work. I love that.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, by the way, if you're seeing this from my page, we're technically streaming from Shauna's page, but it lets you do both, which is cool. So I don't know. It's the first time I've done this and I think it's really neat, like Shauna said. So yeah, back to your question. So for those of you who might not be familiar with me, some of you probably are. I'm Lee. I'm a psychic medium, as Shauna said. And so I've been doing the psychic medium work for 10 years now, which every time I say that, I'm like, oh my God, has it been 10 years? Like, and it has. So I started, 10 years ago. So what inspired me to do the work? So I had an experience one day where, well, let me backtrack a little bit. So I always knew that there was something maybe a little different about how like I processed information around me. You know, I very sensitive to different things. I didn't really have like a name for it or a word for it, but I knew there was something a little kind of like, okay, you know, I feel like I'm just kind of navigating the world a little differently than, you know, some people. And then when I was a teenager, I strongly identified with the term psychic. It was really the only term that I had. So, you know, I would do, I don't know if anyone remembers, I feel like I'm dating myself, but like the AIM, the AOL Instant Messenger, you know, and you'd have like the screen name. And I do like little psychic readings for my friends over AOL, you know, sometimes and and all of that. I was like 13 or 14, I don't know. And then that kind of took a back seat. And then when I got into my earlier 20s was when I had this experience of, you know, so I was out, I'll just briefly kind of say what happened, but I was out with a friend of mine the night before, and one of my other friends who was also there, had mentioned like she thought she had this ability to connect with departed loved ones, and I don't know, something in me was like, huh, that's like really interesting. Like something kind of ignited in me, and I'm like, huh, I like that. Like, you know, I don't know what it was, but anyway, so the next day, I was trying to take a nap. I'll never forget this piece, but I was trying to take a nap. We had all been out, you know, you're 21. We had all been out like the night before for like a while, right? So I was like, I'm getting in a nap today. Little did I know I was not getting in a nap, but so I just had this overwhelming sense. I can't explain it other than like every cell in my body just knew. I don't know how I knew. I just did that. One of the friends who was out with us the night before, like that, her departed loved one was trying to talk to me. And of course, there was like a logical side of my brain that was like, no, you know, like go back to sleep. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, you know, okay, someone's trying to talk to you, really? Like who? There's no one here, you know? So of course there was this logical side to me that was like, no. But what happened was it just like wouldn't go away. Like I could not shake the feeling. So finally, I actually ended up texting my friend. I'm like, hey, I know this is going to sound really weird, but like, I need to let you know that this is like happening, like, I feel like I have someone here for you. Are you open to like, and she admits now, she's like, I kind of thought you lost your mind a little bit when you first texted me, but she was like, yeah, whatever, like, okay. So I started talking, and some things were making sense, some things were a little foggy, and then I just got this sense of like, call her now. And I'm like, I'm already texting her that like I'm gonna call her now. Like, so I did though. I'm like, can I call you? And she's like, yeah, I'm on my way to work soon, but yeah, go ahead, give me a call. So I called her, and that's when the experience really kind of happened, I guess. Her departed grandmother came through, and I had never known her grandmother. I just knew she had passed. But I started just telling her things that I had no way of knowing. And it was like a flood of information just came over me.
Mhm.
And it was just all of these things that I would have never guessed, that I knew logically I could not have known. And I mean, she was on the other end, like, bawling, understandably, because, it's emotional, and we joke about it now. I can joke about it with her now, because she's like, I was like so emotional, and then I had to go to work after that. And
Oh no.
I know. So that was basically the experience. And then from there, I was like, I want to do this. Like, I want to explore this and develop this. And it was really, I joke about it now, but after that experience, I was like, okay, who wants a reading now? You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, so I've been doing it literally since that day. Yeah.
That is so cool. And I love this comment in here. Christina says that had to
Yeah.
be amazing to give her that message. I mean, it's so powerful, right? Because it really, and I just want to shout out everybody really quick. Julie,
Yeah.
Kathy, Michelle, Gina, Christina, Yvonne, Carol, and then Sharon, and then Dawn are here, and then Michael. So good to see you all. And yeah, it's so cool that, to be able to deliver those messages to people, right? Because it brings like healing and peace and closure and comfort and joy sometimes, right? Because it helps them to remember that, that the loved ones around us are always around, just in a different way, right? So
Absolutely, yeah. And I think at first in my journey, like, I was doing it because I saw it helping people, of course, but there was also like a fascination with me where I was like, I want to develop this, and I want to, because it's all new. It's like a whole new world, and you're like, what is happening? So for a little bit in the beginning, I think that's, what really prompted me to keep going with it. But then as I kept doing the work, I started seeing more and more exactly what you're talking about, where it was really healing for people, and people were coming to me and being like, you don't understand how this has changed my life, or, how this is, and maybe not even something that drastic, but like, how this has really just helped me feel so good in the moment. And, so there was so much healing that's the piece. And I think to be a reader of any sort, whether you communicate with animals or, you do psychic medium work or tarot, whatever it is, I think that's really the piece that you have to have, is the piece of like, I want to be of service with this somehow, and I want to help people heal.
Yeah, it's like being of service and connection and helping to people to heal, right? Helping people to process that. So is that kind of what inspired you, is to help people like go through that process of healing after the loss of a loved one? Or
Yeah. I mean, again, I like, as I saw what it was doing for people, I was like, this is really what I love about this, the healing piece. And I joke, but I'm also serious that like, psychic mediumship is not always easy work. You know what I mean? It's not. And I'll be completely transparent, because you really have to be very self-aware, and you probably relate to some of this as well. Like, you have to know if you're in a good space, because you are holding the energy of grief for people. Like, you're holding that space for them. And totally understandable. That's why they're seeking someone like me or you out. But so you have to be very self-aware. There's a lot of development that went into it for me, a lot of taking a look at things in myself, and also the development piece of like learning how to do it, learning how to discern what is spirit and what is, your own mind. And,
Right. Oh, that's a great point right there. So how would you, this made me think of a great question. So how would you, for people that are at home and they're, they may think like, oh my gosh, like I got a message from this person that's a loved one that's passed on. Like, how would they discern if it's like a message from them or from like, their head? So, like, does that make sense? Like, how would they know that, oh, and Rachel's in the house, Rachel and Elizabeth, how would they know that it's from spirit, right? Like, how would they help to discern that?
I always tell people if there's fear attached to it, it's not from spirit. So if it's love, if it's a feeling of love, because I get people asking me a lot, understandably, like I totally get it, but is my loved one mad at me on the other side? Like I felt like I got a message that they're mad, or that they're carrying maybe some sort of anger towards me on the other side, or they're disappointed about the way things. So if you feel like you're getting that as a message, that's not spirit, and that's your own brain trying to figure things out. Because spirit is in a frequency, it exists in a consciousness, and you can probably back this up, Shauna, but it exists in a consciousness of unconditional love. So there's not going to be the message of fear. And I deal with this a lot with people, trying to kind of let people know, that if you feel like there's some sort of fear or something like anger or, again, like disappointment or whatever attached to the message, that's not spirit. And it's tricky, right? Because like everything's coming through our own filters. So I get it, I get the misinterpretation piece, and the like, well, it's coming through me and I feel like maybe they're angry with me, and it took me some time to actually get to the point where I can speak to this and be confident about it. But spirit is love, so that's the best way, right?
Yes. And hey, Shelby and Michelle and Sandy, yes, I agree. Like spirit is love. Like they send those messages of love, right? And that's what they want us to be connected with. And I get too, a lot of people with the animals that I work with, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, are they mad because I put them I have them euthanized too early? Are they mad about this? Are they mad about this? And I'm sure with the people that you work with too, they're probably, people probably like, oh gosh, are they mad about this or mad about this? But they really just want us to be in the love space and the frequency of love. And when we feel that love connection with them, then we know, right? And I think sometimes too, when messages from spirit come through, it's just kind of like just a knowing and just something that like brings you comfort, right? That just kind of happens like out of the blue. What was it? Earlier this week, I was driving, and it's funny because I had never seen this, right? You know where I'm going with this. I've never seen this before. I was driving and I happened to be at this certain place at the certain time, and there was this van turning, and on the van, on the back of it, it said Luna's painting. And I was like, what? And I have my yellow lab Luna that's in spirit. That's my soulmate dog that I wrote my book about and all of that. And anyway, I had never seen that van before. And then I had seen like dogs that reminded me of her that day. So that's my way of knowing that she's connecting with me. And how cool is that, right? And I didn't doubt it. I just knew, and I was with it in that moment, right? And I feel like sometimes we can discount those messages because they really just slide in. And sometimes you might be like, oh yeah, that van's been around. But literally, I have never, ever seen that van ever before.
And that's a good point too. Like, sometimes I do think spirit can work through patterns and things. So, like if someone has seen like a van or something like that before, of course, spirit can still utilize that. But I think a good way to tell as well, if you're wondering about signs and things like that, is like, does this typically happen? Like, is this a part of my everyday? If not, then sit in that awareness for a minute and see also what it feels like to you, right?
Yeah, to see what it feels like to sit in that awareness. And hey, Marcy and Michelle, good to see you. Yeah, sit in that awareness and see what happens. And sometimes spirit, they can send us people that look like them. So this can be a person that passed away or an animal that passed away. Sometimes we might see people that might look at them. And I had a really weird, I've had some interesting experience. I'm not gonna say weird, interesting experiences where I see somebody that reminds me of somebody that's in spirit and they remind me of them, but then I look at them again and then they don't remind me of them. So it's really, have you had that? You know what I'm talking about? It's like real, it's like really interesting how that happens.
It is interesting. I haven't actually, interestingly, had that experience myself, but it comes through in readings for me a lot. Like, well, maybe not a lot, but I have mentioned it, right? Like, I'll get a sense from spirit, like they saw like my face in somebody for a split second, and I'll mention that and be like, does this make sense? And the person will typically be like, oh my God, yes, I thought I saw my dad, or I thought.
Right.
So I think spirit can make that happen. Yeah.
All of that stuff. It's really interesting. And then I had a friend of mine pass away, and she was like a mentor for me years ago. She's an amazing soul. And after, she had given me this book, and I couldn't remember what this book was called. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is this book? Like, I need to, remember this book. And I was like laying in bed and kind of waking up in the morning. And I felt like her presence kind of like kneeled down by me. And I heard her whisper to me, the Abundance book, and it's by John Randolph Price. And like, I heard her mention that to me. She's like, the Abundance book. And I heard her voice like clear as day. I was like, whoa, okay. I was like, okay. I was like, thank you. I was like, thank you. And then I went and, found that book that I still have the copy of. And it's interesting. And hey, Rebecca, at her celebration of life, I was mentioning that to her daughter, and her daughter's like, oh my gosh, we just found copies of that book in the garage, and there was like the exact number of copies for like family members that happened to be there at that time. So I was like, whoa. So it's kind of like she was giving me that message and then giving that message like for me to give her daughter too, which was really cool. So
that is awesome. I love when things like that happen, because it does really validate that they are still with us. And it's things like that. Like, things like that happen to me a lot, and especially I think when we're open to it and we're present with it. But it never really seems to get old. You know what I mean? Like, every time it happens, every time something else happens, it's that same feeling of like, oh my God, I know you're here. So I love that.
Isn't it cool? And when we acknowledge that, it's even more beautiful. Like, I have a friend that passed away, and they like reconnected their like Facebook when after, like right before they had passed away, right? And so randomly sometimes, and I know this is like their spirit, like, oh yep, hey, hi, I get like a thing as a friend suggestion for this person, like come up, and I'm like, okay, hi, I'm like, thank you, thanks for being like my cheerleader up there. I know that you're with me. And it's interesting because I have that pop up sometimes. I'm like, okay, that's really cool.
Yeah, he's trying to let you know, or she, I don't know why I said he, but they're trying to let you know that they're still around.
No, you're right. It's a he.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Yep.
Sorry. Sometimes it happens.
Yeah, it's like he's like, okay, like I'm right here. Like, so that's really cool. And then like my friend that passed away too. And then I had another friend that passed away that I used to work with. And I found out through Facebook that she was like, that she had passed away. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know she was sick and all that. And I found out, and I was like, oh my gosh. And this was after they had her kind of celebration of life. So I wasn't able to go down to it, but I got signs from her where I had like, her name, like somebody had her name, like at a restaurant I was at, like, or similar, like to her name, or somebody looked like her. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I was like, that's a way for her to remind me that, hey, that connection. Like, and yeah, somebody saying they love Roseanne. Good to see you, Roseanne. They love those signs from spirits because they're everywhere, right? They're everywhere.
They are. And I think really anyone who follows me, I know there's some of you on here following me right now, because again, we're streaming from Shauna's page, but you'll know that I say this all the time. But like, I think we just need to be present to it and just receive it, really. We're the ones that get in our own way.
Exactly. We do get in our own way because we question it. We're like, oh, that's such a that's like a common thing. But sometimes it's, it may be a common thing, but that's you might be like, oh, that's just a dragonfly or a butterfly that I see. But sometimes it's not, when we have that thought of that person or that pet, like right after, that shows that it's not necessarily a common thing, right? That it's their way to connect. And I see Tina and Robert. Good to see you.
Mm.
And also too, so I want to talk about our event, but I have this question for you. So how would people like what different ways would spirit come through? Would they, come through like what way do they come through our senses? Like what different ways do they come through? So
yeah, so I think it's different typically with everybody, right?
yeah.
I don't know if everyone's familiar with what they call the clairs. You probably are, Shauna. But like, so I never remember all of them, but there's clairsentience, which means clear feeling, clairvoyance, which means clear seeing, I believe. So images and things like that. Is it clairaudience? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So hearing, and then I think there's another name for this too, but clairfragrance is scent. And then gustance is taste. So, and I mean, perceiving these things that, maybe you're smelling something like perfume or something, and there's actually no one in the room and you weren't smelling it a minute, that's not maybe tangible to anyone else with you, right? So spirit can use any of these senses. Some of us, typically I think we're stronger in certain ones. I know for me, clairsentience is a big one. Oh, claircognizance is another one, like clear knowing. So just knowing something without knowing how you know it.
Yes, that one happens to me all the time. And that was like the hardest thing for me when I started, because I was like, how do I know this? And it's like, okay, just know that you know it. That's all that you need to know. Know that you know it, right?
Exactly. Just know you. And I work with that one a lot, actually. Just know, I don't know how I know it. I just know. Right. And so clairsentient, I work a lot with that, and clairvoyance as well. I believe there's even more clairs that maybe aren't as defined or like defined at all. I think as human beings, we actually are just super multifaceted with our psychic senses. And I think everyone is intuitive, so you don't have to be a psychic medium to be intuitive, or an animal communicator. I think everyone's just intuitive. So we all have these multifaceted ways that spirit can connect with us. Those are some of the main ones, though, so for me, though, I mean, the way I communicate is just like through what I said, like I'll see images sometimes in my head. I'll get feelings of different things. Sometimes spirit will actually use my physical body. So like if someone like had, maybe trouble breathing towards, the end of their journey, like I might actually feel like my breath become like labored. So things like that. So yeah, I think it really depends on the person. Yeah.
Right. Yep. I've had all that stuff happen too. And then, hey, Debbie, so and Lisa, I've had that happen too, where it's just, you have like, maybe I have a sensation in my body or something like that. And sometimes what's interesting is it'll happen before a session with somebody. And I'm like, okay, like I know this isn't me. And then as soon as I let them know, or I, deliver the message, then it goes away. Or I had a scent experience with my grandma that passed away. And it's so interesting. So she passed away on, and I feel like she did this just like as a kind of like as a sign and a message too, to just be like, oh yeah, this is the day I'm going out. So she passed away on 6/6/6. So like June 6th of 2006. I was like, okay. Wow. Yeah. It's like, all right, Grandma, that's the day she passed away. But it's interesting. That's the day she chose. And it's like, okay, I always remember that. But what's interesting is she used to wear taboo. And so I've been in the store and I walked by somebody and I could smell like the taboo, like as I walk by them, or sometimes out of the blue, you might smell that too. Right. So people are wanting to kind of connect with their loved ones in spirit. Like, what do you recommend they do? Do they just call it out and say, okay, like I want to connect with you? Is there a good time of day to do it? What's kind of a good way for people to do that?
I mean, I think you can do it any time of the day, really. I think honestly, the biggest thing is, to invite them in, to ask them, right? I think that is important, to establish that connection, but then get out of your own way, like listen, and by get out of your own way, I mean, be present and be receptive. So if things are happening and someone's kind of and I know there's a handful of people on here that probably don't do this at this point, but maybe some people do have challenges with this, and we've all been there as well. But like, if you're kind of just like, oh, whatever, that's just a coincidence, that's just me, like, that it's like a faucet, like, and the water's running, and as soon as you do that, you're turning the faucet right off, so so I tell people, really just get out of your own way. Is really what listen and be receptive and be present, because spirit's always there. We're the ones that really just kind of need to tune into that frequency, and it's not hard. Like, I think sometimes people think it's like this miraculous thing, which it is in its own right, but miraculous, right. I mean, like, can almost never be obtained, and you need like this special psychic medium. And mediums and readers, and we all have our place, and I totally, right. I honor that. I do think we have our place, absolutely, but people can tune into spirit and tune into their loved ones on their own too, whenever they want, really.
Exactly, they totally can, and I feel like that's a good reminder. It's cool to go to somebody like you that does the work you do, but we can always tune in ourselves as well. And I see a cool question. Hi, Irma, and hi, April. There's a question here from Sandy. This is a cool question. It says, "What about as you talk, you sound like the person that passed away? It happens to me all the time." That's a really cool question. What do you think of that?
Yeah. No, that's a way that they can come through. I've actually had that happen in sessions where people will tell me in the moment or after the fact, like, you said that just like, this person would have. Or I remember one time, this still sticks with me, because every reading stands out in its own way to me, but there are some I think that just kind of stick in my head a little more, I guess, a little longer. I don't know. But it was this couple that unfortunately lost their son pretty tragically, and at the end, the father. So it started out a little like hazy for me, but it ended up going really well. So I loved hearing this at the end. But the dad actually was like, your mannerisms when you started connecting with my son, your mannerisms and the things you were saying and how you were saying them. It was like eerie. It was like I was looking at him again. And I love that so much, because I know that in that moment, I was able to allow spirit to use my physical body to let this couple have another physical moment with their son again. Right.
Right. Yeah. Right. Because sometimes that's the hardest thing, I think, right, is not having those physical moments. But then there's different ways we can connect to those physical moments in a different way. It's not the same, but it's in a different way, like experiences like that and other experiences, right? It's very powerful.
Yeah. So to answer, I think it was Sandy's question. Yeah, they absolutely do come through like that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so cool. I love it. Spirit is an amazing thing. So that's kind of, one of the reasons. So Lee and I have known each other for a while. So I do the animal communication work. I connect with pets that are living and past, and then Lee does the psychic mediumship, where he does the psychic stuff for people, but then he does the mediumship as well. So that's why we partnered together to do this cool event called Afterlife Connections, and it's on, I can't believe it's already next Thursday, the 14th of September. I was almost going to say January, but the 14th of September. I'm like, wait a minute. Hello, the 14th of September at 3:00 Pacific, and then that would be 6:00 Eastern. Mm-hmm. And what it's $44. It's on Zoom, and what we're going to do is we're going to deliver messages to people that come on there. So you might get a reading from Lee, you might get a reading from me. It's going to be kind of just to see kind of what flows. It'll be an animal in spirit or a person in spirit. And then what's cool is sometimes the messages kind of like intertwine and come together, which is really cool. So it'll be really fun to see what comes through. And what's neat is sometimes as you see a message from one person, that might resonate with you as well, right? So it's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm so excited, by the way.
Me too. I'm excited too. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. So we did keep it to 12 spots to keep it a little more intimate. And I think we have 5 clanging. I think we have 5 left, right? Am I correct? And
Yes, we have 5 left. So we have 5 spots left. So I mean, that'll those I anticipate will go fast. So that's why, it's like, hey, let's share about this so people can kind of see. And really, the event is just a way for people to connect. And what's really cool is when you do like the group dynamic, it's really cool because it's just that like it's kind of creates like kind of like a sacred container and a sacred space. And it's really, really special.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, I think it's in the group energy. I think it amplifies things a little bit, like I for me at least, like I feel it a bit more, because there's a bit more energy that's kind of happening, in the physical. So I think it's really cool and it helps bring people together. So I'm very excited. And
Me too. I'm excited too because it's been a long time coming. And hey, Gabriella and Maria and Buffy, excited to see you, Buffy, next week. And then so Gabriella, it's an evening of afterlife connection. So you should see the comment above, or if you're listening on Lee's page, I think he could go probably put the link in. So we're doing it on September 14th, which is Thursday, and there's going to be limited to 12 participants. We have 5 spots left, and it's $44. And it's going to be where I'm going to tune into animals in spirit, and he's going to tune into people in spirit. So, you might not get a message from both of us, but most likely you'll get a message from one of us, and one, message that probably comes through from another person will resonate with you. It's really cool how spirit works like that. It's kind of like the image I just got in my head is kind of like dominoes going down, right? It just kind of like they piggyback off each other, right? Like it's just that kind of that infinity kind of thing, right? There's that connection. So it's going to be really fun, and it's going to be on Zoom, really intimate, and it's just that group dynamic. It's so powerful, right? So
I love doing the group stuff. Oh, hold on. Lisa says, where do I go, Lee? I tried Tuesday. So can you see Shauna's comment on here, Lisa?
I just put the comment again, and I'm going to put it again, too, because I can, let's see here. So I'm going to put, and then let's see if I find if it has, it doesn't have like the actual, I wonder here if I do it like this will, actually I have an easier way to do it. I did it the complicated way, but let me do it the easier way. So I'm going to share the link in a more condensed way. So what I was doing is I was sharing it from my like Facebook, and I think it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't come as, well, maybe it comes across the same way. I don't know. So I'm just going to share it again. So then the link will be in there. So hopefully you should see that in there. Lisa. So because we would love to have you join. So Lisa shared, Julie shared the post. Thank you, Julie.
Oh, thanks, Julie.
So, that means a lot. So so I just shared it in this way, which actually looks better because I think before I shared it from like how I had shared on my Facebook, and when you share it like that, it doesn't always, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know, all that techie stuff. I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes it just feels like, shoo. So.
Oh yeah, I'm with you. I'm like, I can talk to departed loved ones all day long, but put me in front of a computer and ask me about it. I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
No, exactly right. And then, hey, Patricia, and hey, Maria. That's how I am too. I'm like, oh, cool. The links work. Okay, cool. Thank you, Patricia. Cool. Yeah. So yeah, good to know. So it's like that's that techie stuff. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, no. I'm like, for me, it's easier. I'm like, okay, put your animal in front of me that's living to connect with, or your one that's passed, and I can do that like easy peasy. It's interesting. So I don't know if you have this experience, but how this would work for you is kind of interesting. And hey, Lacey, is sometimes animals, like if they see me, sometimes they'll just like look at me and they'll just like have this knowing. They'll be like, oh, like, like you can tune into us. Or sometimes they'll just like come up to me. They just kind of have a way of knowing. So how does that, do you have anything similar with like people in spirit? Does that make sense? Like, do you like walk by somebody sometimes and then like a person in spirit will just kind of like pop in? Have you ever had anything like that happen?
Oh yeah, yeah. That still happens a lot, actually. Um, I tell spirit, I'll be like, come see me for an appointment or something, because I don't think it's appropriate. I know we see some mediums doing it, but like, I'm not about to go up to someone who's buying eggs in the grocery store and being like, oh, you can get those cheaper down the road. Who's the young male who died in the tragedy? You know what I mean? Like, I just I don't think it's appropriate. And I know there's one medium on TV that does that a lot. And I will say, as a disclaimer, I love her. I
Me
just
too.
don't agree with that piece of it, but I do love her. Um, but yeah, I mean, for me, I had it happen today, and I was actually talking to a friend of mine, and I'm like, I was buying a supplement, and I'm like at the counter, and there are two guys behind the counter, and I just feel an energy step forward, and I'm like, oh no no no, like like I can't do this right now. He's just trying to ring me out, like I'm not going to bring through his mom, and so I do. I just say, come find me for an appointment. Come get me in my office. Like come have your person come to an event or something like that. Or
Also, you tell the spirit that, right? So you tell the
yeah,
spirit, like, have your person, instead of like telling the person behind the counter, hey, did you know, like, I'm a medium, like,
yeah.
you don't do that. You connect it
No.
with the person in spirit.
Yeah, no, I don't like doing that either. I mean, maybe in some circumstance, but like, especially if someone's just trying to work or something,
Right.
like I don't think it's necessarily appropriate to even be like, hey, I'm a medium. Do you want to message? Because they have to go back to work. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly, right. And that could be hard for them. So you kind of use the person in spirit as a conduit. Be like, okay,
yeah.
have the person that is right here that you want to have me deliver a message to, have them find me in another way.
Yeah. I mean, there have been rare occasions that like it wasn't like someone was at work or like in the grocery store. Like I remember one, I was in a spiritual shop and one of the ladies who worked there, and like I became kind of friendly with her. So, there have been instances like that where I will say, like, I am a medium, and she knew at this point anyway. And I'm like, are you okay right now with getting a message? So certain circumstances, if I'm really feeling it and I feel like it's appropriate, but
Yeah.
otherwise, not just like an off the cuff thing. I think spirit actually kind of gave me the lesson pretty early on that like, don't do that to people. You know what I mean?
Exactly, because that can be like, it can be like like to their system, because that's like an emotional
Yeah.
thing that you're connecting with. So that could really, be, and you don't know like how fresh the loss is, and even if it's
Yeah.
not a fresh loss, like doing this kind of opens up that loss container again, so to speak. So then it can bring up all those emotions, and you want to make sure somebody's in that right space for that, right, to be able to receive
Yeah.
that, because it's can be, I don't want to say heavy, but it's a lot, it's intense
Mm.
energy, right? It's
Yeah.
you want to be ready for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Spirits come forward. Okay. Do spirits come forward and try to get you to connect even when the person that yeah, they do. Yeah. Yeah. Uh,
So even when the person's not ready, they might be like, hey, I want to have this message delivered. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it has happened, because I think spirit ultimately just wants us to know they're okay and they're good. And, so it's not like a thing of like, spirit being like, I don't care if you're not ready. I think spirit just wants us to know, like, I'm good. Like I'm at peace. Like you can be at peace. And, again, it's just a different level of consciousness, but, it does happen. I won't say it happens frequently, especially with how I kind of do it now, where I wait for people to come to me or sign up for an event or book an appointment, or um, or again, if it's another circumstance where I feel like I can ask appropriately, maybe that. But
Yeah.
it has happened, sure, yeah, yeah. So mhm.
Exactly. Like, okay, yeah, I have an agreement with spirit. I'm like, okay, because I could communicate too with people that have
Mhm.
passed on, but I just choose to not do that. I'm like, okay, animals all day, I could do that, but people, like, okay, if it's somebody I know, like, I'll help them with that if they come to it, or if they come through like in an animal session, then I'll be like, okay, like I can help with that,
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, we all have our own comfort level
right?
around things,
Yep.
Um, yeah, I just always was very drawn to the human part of it,
Yeah.
So I don't know,
I
but
know.
also the pet part as well, because I love animals, you know.
I
So
know, right? And
yeah,
the animals are so amazing. And I have to say, like, I love all the animal communication sessions I do, but some of my absolute favorite sessions are the ones like connecting to the pets in spirit, or connecting when the pet is about to pass, to be able to help to give people that peace and comfort, because that's so
yeah,
hard. And I feel like a lot of times, even when people pass, people don't really understand like grief and how people process grief, and they try to
right.
put too many like rules and all of this on it. And I don't think there is any rules to processing grief, and like how spirit comes to you. And I actually have had people say to me like, oh my gosh, okay, my dog just passed, can you connect with them even like the next day or the same day? And I actually can connect
Yeah.
with them the same day or the next day. And I know like some people will be like, oh well, there's a rule on that, like you can't do that. And I'm like, you know what, like I'm not a rule person, so like who makes up those rules anyway? I'm like, what rules? Like,
Yeah, why
no.
not?
Yeah,
Why
so it's
not?
like,
Why can't I connect the same day? Yeah.
why
Um,
not, right? And I think
yeah.
it's like, I think it's maybe if the people may not be ready for it, because I actually had somebody come to me for
Uh,
an animal communication session. They had a reading like with somebody else like pretty shortly after one of their fur babies passed, and they weren't really ready to hear all the information, and then they came to me, and then they were more ready. So I think it's kind of like a
yeah.
personal preference thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, no, I understand that too on with what I do as well. I think it's not common, I'll say, that I can connect with a soul like the day that they pass. It has happened, but sometimes I think for human souls, at least in my perception, it takes maybe just a bit more to kind of like integrate to the other side or
Oh,
uh,
and does it take, because different, like, so based on like how the person passed. So say like a person dies of cancer, or they die of a car accident, or they die of like suicide, or they just die of old age. Like, do those like different ways of like their passing have different like time limits on like how easy it is to connect with them? Does that make sense?
No, it makes a lot of sense.
With
Yes and no. So I'm gonna explain too. So I don't think if someone, I've never had the experience that if someone like dies tragically, we'll say like maybe they do choose to end their own journey or something, that then they have to then wait like a year to be able to communicate. That I think is more the strength, I guess, of the soul. And by strength, I just mean it in a way of like how good they are at communicating. So I find that if someone was really good at communicating here in life, especially like emotionally, they're typically on the other side, like it's very easy for them to come through, because that's how spirit works is through emotion. Really, that's how they get the messages to me. So there's that. I do think, just as a caveat, like if somebody might be passing of an illness or something like that, I think sometimes they can come through maybe a bit sooner. And again, it really depends on the soul, but maybe a bit sooner, just because I think the soul has had a bit more time to process kind of what's going on, even here in the physical. So if it was like a years long thing, then the soul might have had more of that time here to sort of, figure some things out. Even while we're here physically, because there's a piece of the soul that still I think is, existent on the other side. So
yeah,
that's the only thing I can think of. But yeah, to anything else, no, I think it's really just contingent on the soul and how they operate. And I will say that sometimes if people are like not good communicators here in life, I can maybe have a bit of a harder time with them. Um, and maybe there's a bit more their soul kind of figuring that out a
right.
little bit. But I think every case is different, honestly. Yeah.
Right,
So
I agree. So, oh my gosh, so two questions with that. So, do you find, oh my gosh, where's my first question? So, do you find that people like communicate like in the same way? Like, oh, okay, there's my second question. As so, two questions. So, do you think they communicate like the same way as they pass over? And then also too, so I've had the experience with my Luna when she passed away, and other animals I worked with, part of their soul, like as they're transitioning, I found is here, but then part of it starts to transition to the other side with animals I work with. Do you find that with people as well? And then do they communicate in the same way?
Yeah, I do find that. I think, and that's kind of what I mean too. Like if someone maybe is dealing with like an illness or something where the soul is just ready to exit, um, there's a piece that's still here, and then I think there is this piece to the soul that does kind of do maybe some of the integration work as far as like, crossing. And then to your second question, can you repeat? I'm not sure exactly what you mean with the.
So do
the
they
other one.
communicate like in the same way they were like in life? So if somebody was like
Oh,
a big talker, are they like really like
yeah,
chatty in spirit? Like if they were really
yeah.
loud, are they really
Yeah.
loud in spirit? Does that make sense? Like that kind of thing?
Yeah, a lot of the times, yes, but I think again, it's dependent on the soul because it's funny. Like I have another grandmother who passed away a little while ago, and she was like the biggest talker here in life. Like she would talk whether you were listening or not. Like she's just gonna talk. You know what I mean? Um, and she was great. I want to say past tense, but like I still love her for that. Because I know she's hearing me as I'm saying this, but. I don't know what it is. Like, I've been to a few mediums myself and she doesn't really come through very strongly. And I had always imagined like when she passed, that she was going to come through and be like the talker and that doesn't really happen for whatever reason. So I think it really just depends on the soul. I like to joke that she's on the other side being like, I said all I had to say in life. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
I said all I had to say in life. Well, and it's interesting. It's two things. So this brought up a memory with my mom's mom that passed away that I want to share. But it's interesting as you're talking about your grandma. Like as soon as you mentioned her, I saw like those funny like shoebox greeting cards with like the old lady on the front, and then Bernadette flashed into my head too, like them both like in tandem, which is really funny. And it's interesting, right? Because they can, communicate in different ways. And you're making me think. So my mom's mom, before she passed, it was so funny. You'd be talking to her on the phone and you'd just be talking, and then, she'd jump from one thing to the other. But then all of a sudden you'd be like in mid conversation with her. And all of a sudden she'd be like, okay, bye. And she would just totally hang up on,
I love that.
She'd be like, okay, bye. And I'd be like, okay, well, there you go. And
Okay.
it would just crack me up every time.
I guess we're done.
I'm like, all right, bye. That's so funny.
That is awesome.
But it's interesting how
yeah.
your grandma comes through in a different way, because sometimes that can happen, right? Maybe, there's, who knows?
Yeah, I remember I went to a medium, and I don't go to mediums myself often at all, but I went probably about a year after she passed, and she picked up on her a little bit. And then at one point, my grandfather kind of took over, and towards the middle of the session, she's like, I don't even know what happened to your grandmother. She's like out the window somewhere. And I'm like, honestly, that kind of makes sense because she also had like a very kind of flighty personality and I say that with love. But it surprises me to this day that she doesn't come through as the talker because I mean, like Shauna, like you literally, like my dad, it's funny because my dad, who is her son, he would put the phone down sometimes, like to go to the bathroom or something, and she would still be talking, and then he'd come back and pick it up, and she's still having a full out conversation. Like, no idea.
Oh my God, that's funny. Man,
Yeah.
now I wonder if there's people in my life that do that to me. I wonder if I talk a lot.
Down, like, all right, whatever.
Like, okay, Shauna's gonna talk. So we're just gonna be like, we're just gonna put the phone down for a second.
It's hilarious now. It's hysterical, but like she just loved to talk. But as a soul, I don't know. I think she said everything she needed to say.
She got out all her stuff. She was like, she didn't hold anything in. She's like, all right, I got that out, right? And maybe somebody that in life didn't get out everything as much, maybe didn't share all the things they wanted to share. Maybe they might be more talkative, right? You never know.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's actually a good point that, maybe they could come through and try to say a lot of things that they didn't get to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's so cool. Like, I love this conversation because it can go just in so many different ways, right? Because there's so much to, spirit and all of that. And it's funny. Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay. It's funny. The shirt that I ended up wearing today is like connected to somebody that I know that's in spirit. And I just looked at the shirt and I was like, okay, I acknowledge that we're doing this live today. And here I'm wearing this. So
Oh,
isn't
I
that
love that.
interesting? Like how that kind of stuff happens. I'm like, okay, there we go. So it's
It's
sometimes
yeah.
those things too. They might send us something that maybe we buy for ourselves that's kind of like a reminder of them or a connecting piece to them,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely, yeah. And like with my grandmother, like I know she's around. She does some little things sometimes, and so even if they're not like coming through completely talkative through a medium or a reader, it doesn't mean they're not there. It just means they're working it in a different way, like maybe like what you're saying, like sending us little things, just to kind
Yeah,
of be
like
like, yeah, I'm around.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. And there's no like rules to it either, right? There's just no rules. It's like
yeah,
it's all different, So yeah. So I'm so
I love that.
excited that we can have this conversation today and then for our event too. Like it's gonna be so much fun.
Yeah,
So people are interested, sign up if you have a pet
yeah,
in spirit or a person in spirit that you're wanting to connect with and wanting that message from. I mean, we're gonna, have it's going to be perfect that with having it be the smaller group of people, right? Instead of,
I think so.
be
Yeah.
more intimate, which I like that. So,
I do too. I think it'll be good. And if we have like a minute or two, I was curious, like if I can ask if anyone maybe has any questions about anything.
yeah, that would be great. Yeah. So, does anybody have any questions about anything? Yeah, I would love that. I think that's great. Yeah.
I always like to try to open it up on like my life because I know we're on your
Yeah.
page, but because I like the questions that come in too. Like people have
Yeah.
some good ones,
Right. Well, and sometimes too, it's questions that come through that, you and I, with doing this work, right? It's maybe questions that just come natural to us. Oh my gosh, and your light just changed it again. Okay. Anyway, so is we it's like, woo, time for the questions. Is sometimes we may not think of those questions because it just is like second nature to us, where it's like, oh
Right.
yeah, like that makes sense. Like I would know why you would want to know that, but it just we're not always connected to that piece of it, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah, because it's so a part of our everyday where it's like tying shoes to us, it's like, so yeah, absolutely. I think Lacey has a question. This might be one, I mean, I can answer it too, but this might be good for you to answer too, Shauna.
Yeah, this is a great question. Where do our pets go? I imagine an idea of where humans go. So basically, like the pets go, like it's kind of like in the same spot where the humans go. Like it's over the, Rainbow Bridge and that Rainbow Bridge. And sometimes they actually go with people that are already in spirit, maybe that they had met, maybe that they hadn't met, or sometimes they might be in like a big, dog park, if it's a dog, like running around free, or, a horse galloping free, or a cat just like hanging out, in high spots. So they go to those places that they're like really connected to, if that makes sense. Like the places that like bring them warmth and comfort, and kind of like their favorite place that's on earth. It's like kind of like translated over on the other plane where they are.
I find that with people sometimes too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That it's if they have like a favorite spot or a favorite place, like they'll show that to me. And be like, I can be here whenever I want. So yeah.
Yeah, I know. And they always do call it the Rainbow Bridge for pets. Why is that? I'm surprised I never looked into that before, but since you mentioned it, yeah, I don't know. Like, I need to look into more of like why they call it the Rainbow Bridge. But to me, like, I'll just speak from my perspective, and Lee can put in his 2 cents. I feel like it's really our pets are like the bridge to really embrace all of who we are, and like a rainbow just encompasses like all the like colors and light and depth and all of that that the animals in our and pets in our life bring us. So it's like a rainbow to me symbolizes like all the light that they bring into our, the color, the light, the depth, the different frequencies of just everything that they bring into our life. So to me, that's that. And it's just that, crossing that bridge, it's just, yeah. So that's kind of how I resonate with that. What do you resonate with for the Rainbow Bridge, Lee?
I think that's perfect, to be honest. Yeah, like the color and the light that they bring into our lives, and the whole spectrum of awesomeness and greatness and joy, and all of that.
Yes, all of that. Yes, I agree. And this is a great question too. And you could probably answer this too. Do pets that pass meet up with people they have lived with in life? And yes. And sometimes it's people they lived with in life, and sometimes it was people that maybe they hadn't lived in with life. You probably experienced that, right? Because you communicate with pets, I know, in spirit as well as people. So
yeah, I think they absolutely do. Yeah. I'm just reading the question to make sure I have it right one more time. Do pets that have passed meet up with the people that so I feel like it's about the connections too, so like just like humans, like that connection never dies, that bond is forever. So if you have a connection with an animal or a human, but specifically this question, an animal, that bond is unbreakable even through physical death,
yes.
So yeah, I think we all kind of meet up, and I'm fully waiting when my time to transition, hopefully not for a while, but I'm fully waiting to like have all my pets and everything greet me, and so yeah, I absolutely do think that happens.
Right, I think so too. Yeah. Oh, I'm excited to meet you next week too, Kathy. I'm excited that you're going to be a part of our event. And then Lisa, yes. Lisa says, are you able to hear them bark? I've experienced that. Yes. So sometimes I think you can hear like a bark or meow, or you can even kind of feel their presence too. Like their spirit is so amazing like that. And sometimes it's like, wait, what did I hear? Just go with it and be with it and just know like, oh, yep, that's what I hear.
Yes, exactly. Go with it and be with it. I love that. Like seriously, because that's them trying to say hi. They're, letting us know they're good.
Exactly.
And I don't know. I'll mention. I don't know what brought this to my mind, but I just figured I mentioned it. And Shauna, I don't know. I'd be curious your thoughts on this. But do you feel like animals kind of? I guess we touched on this a little bit, but like, do you feel that animals kind of like integrate to the other side quicker? Because like, I feel like for me at least, and again, I know we kind of touched on this, but like for me, I don't know. It seems like they can be physically here and then they can transition, and it's almost like for them it's not the same feeling I get with humans, where sometimes humans are very like, or human souls is kind of like, oh yeah, like it took like a minute, they're all fine of course, but like it took like a minute or so, and I had to kind of like integrate and realize that, oh, I don't have a body anymore. But I feel like animals just kind of naturally straddle the two worlds, so it's not as difficult. Does that make sense?
It totally does. And I feel that 100%, because animals that I work with that transition, they just like, it's just like an easy slide. It's like right. James Von Prague that I did some work with years ago. He's like, yep, it's like stepping into the other room. And that's exactly how animals do it, is it's like, yep, here we are. We're like in the other room, and like, woo, it's like an easy transition for them, where people sometimes we're in that human mind sometimes. So we're like, okay, that integration time, where animals, they're more present in the earth realm and the realm above. Does that make sense? They're more connected to both of those realms, if that makes sense. That's what I feel from like my experience.
It does. And it's interesting, because even with the animals in my life who have passed, I feel like I've had an experience with every single one of them that gave me this feel like, in retrospect, like I can look at it and be like, oh my God, I feel like they knew they were going to pass that day, or, so I think they even have a greater awareness than maybe some humans do, like about that, about like, okay, it's my time. And they're good with it. They're already kind of at peace with it.
Yeah, they're already at peace with it. We're humans, we're like, oh, and I think they're just, animals are just, and I feel like it's too, because animals are, and you're welcome, Lisa, animals are just so present, right? Like they remind us of our present, and they're so present. So they can, they're connected with that passing moment, because they're in the present, where humans, we're not always in the present moment. We're like here, we're there, we're like everywhere. Me, myself, I'm guilty of all of that. So, animals just remind us to take a step back and just like,
Yeah.
let's, let's breathe it in, let's breathe it in. And this is a interesting thing here. So I'm going to read this here. Lisa says, I'm Lacey, sorry. Lacey says, our family member passed away in my arms at my work. My brother couldn't say it was okay to put him to sleep, but he also knew he couldn't let him suffer. I told him he wouldn't be alone and that he would be with me. I finally got my brother to leave. It was the hardest thing he's ever done in his life. It was crazy because those 20 seconds it took for him to walk out of the doors when our dog immediately opened his eyes wide awake, like he was struck by lightning. Even more happened after. Wow. Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. So much love to you with all of that, Lacey, because that's wow.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing, right? It's not an easy thing. So, yeah.
No, it's not, which is where people like Shauna come in and, help seriously, but, help with the healing process and all that. But yeah, that is,
yeah. And same with you too, that healing process. And that's really the thing that just like, I love all the sessions I do, but being able to help people with that healing. So then they know like, okay, like it's
yeah,
it means so much to me to be able to do that. It's healing for me too, to see, does that make sense? It's
absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. Healing on both ends.
Yes, healing on both ends. Yes. So it's so amazing to be a part of all of that. So yes. So I'm gonna put, because I'm super obnoxious. I'm gonna put the link in. Lee's like, okay, I'm gonna put the link in.
I love it.
So then because we have our amazing event next Thursday, and there's 5 spots left, and it's a night of afterlife connections where Lee's connecting with people in spirit and I'm connecting with animals in spirit. It's $44, limited to 12 people. We have 5 spots left. So if you want to, connect and be, connected in a group of that sacred container people, then definitely, check that out. And if you have any questions, definitely please reach out to Lee or I, as far as that goes. And then I see, Lisa says, Lee, you are so correct. The gaze and the eyes and the kiss from them is precious. It is, right? And then, yes, Kathy, it's going to be on Zoom. It's going to be on Zoom. So yeah, so it'll be, I love doing Zoom. It's so fun. Zoom. And then Kathy says it is difficult for, let's see here. Kathy says, is it difficult for each of you to guard your own hearts when dealing with so many emotionally charged instances every day, all day long? So for me, that is why when you do like this kind of work, it's not, oh, you're so welcome, Lisa. So much love. So is doing this kind of work, it's not like a 40-hour a week, 8-hour a day job. It's like you kind of have to be like, okay, like I can, like for me, probably the most sessions I would do in a day is like 3 to 5. Like that's kind of my max in a day, 3 to 5. Now, if I'm doing an event, I could do like 10 to 15 in a day. Like if I'm doing an event, but that's like shorter kind of readings, if that makes sense. So it's really, so that's how, like, so I don't really find it difficult. I just make sure to like manage my self-care, to give myself time in nature, to give myself like breaks in between, and to really do that. Like it's so important to do that, right? Like it's so important.
Yeah. And I think for me, so so is it difficult for you to read? So I know what she's getting at here. I don't actually guard my heart though. I open it wide up to spirit, I'm like, okay.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I think this is what I talked about earlier as well, where you have to be very self-aware and be aware of like where your own energy is at. And if you're able to show up in an authentic way, and and like I do similar things to Shauna, making sure like I spend a lot of time in like nature or doing things that I feel like ground me, and I clear my energy after every session. That's like the first thing that I'll do. So just maintenance things in that area. And I think I've just learned that like my spirit has helped me learn that my job really stops when the reading's done, so anything as far as like me holding on to anything, and it's a practice, but it's just not going to serve anyone. It's not going to serve me, and it's not going to serve the person I was sitting with for me to hold on to it, you know. So I like to just kind of release everything back to spirit, and you know, just show gratitude for the opportunity to be able to do it, and then just let it go.
Yes, exactly. And just let it go. Yeah. And it is about opening your hearts too. And I didn't address that part because, yeah, because if you,
Yeah.
you know, I like, it's good to keep it open because actually, like, I find doing these sessions, like, it actually opens my heart up more because it's like you see how it's helping people to open up their hearts more to receive that love that's always coming our way, right? Like it's to receive
Right.
that love that's always coming our way. And hey, JC
Right.
and hey, Lisa, all that love. And it's kind of that's why I kind of got my infinity tattoo. And it's kind of in honor of my Luna. So it has the open spots on it, has the heart and then the paw print. So it just reminds that connection is always open. It's never closed off. It's always open,
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
open. And then
Absolutely.
Lacey says the other part to this, his wife was pregnant with twins. The blanket we brought Tyson in got lost at my work for months. I tried to find it. My brother was so sad about it. Days before the twins were born, I found Tyson's blanket in one of the front offices next to me. A manager took it because there was no heater in that office area. I was shocked when I found it. My brother felt so happy at ease, and it was just in time. Well, it was interesting. Did you know what I just heard from that? It was a way to say that, like, I'm still there, like in, like I'm still part of the family, and like and it's perfect timing that it came right when where the twins were born. That's what I just heard.
I love that. And it, you know, things like that too. Like it's comforting, and it's them, you know,
Yeah.
being like, yeah, you know, just in time. I'm here, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
just in time. Everything is all divinely aligned and in time. And my grandma used to say, like, everything happens for a reason, and you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Like, even if you may not, like, you know, sometimes it might be like, oh, but it was just, you know, like it might be like, oh my gosh, like, why am I supposed to be right here, right now, in this exact moment? And she, you know, always reminded me of that. That's so important. And then Lacey said, it truly was perfect timing beyond all words I could say to explain why I got chills when you said that too. Yeah, and that's just what I heard from Tyson. Tyson's like, yeah, like I had it happen like that. I was like, yep, here we go. So it's like,
here we go. I love when the little messages just pop in there. You know, it's fun.
oh, Lisa, you are fine, Lisa. Yeah, if you have trouble signing up, Lisa, definitely like reach out to us because I know, like, trust me, that like techie stuff sometimes it's like, oh wait, you know, so
Oh yeah.
you're fine. Any issues, definitely please reach out to us. So yeah.
Yes, I will look up for that, Lisa. No problem.
Oh, yeah, so much love, Lacey. Lacey said he really did, and then a heart. I've got sad but really happy face going on. Oh, see that's what they want us to remind us of is the joy and being in that like vibration of that love. Because when we're like not guarded and when our hearts are open and that like that vibration of love gets magnified, don't you find that? Because if we're so deep in
Yeah.
the grief, sometimes we might get a message and it might just be
Oh yeah.
like, you know, but if we're in like, you know, the presence of love, then it's like, okay, we have a chance to be present with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, we lived to be 19. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's awesome. But yeah, I love experiences like that. I think it's validating that, you know, they are still with us and they're still a part of the family and, you know, all of that. So,
Exactly.
so yeah.
All that goodness. I love it. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so excited to like, and hey, Wendy and all everybody. If I missed anybody, Lisa and JC, it's so good to connect with you all. And this has been so fun to like
Yeah.
to share about this because you never know what's going to come up, and it's always different when different people come on because different questions come up, which is really cool. Oh, Lacey said Boxer Lab. We fed him everything. Ha ha ha. That's the key to happiness for a dog. There you go.
That's cute.
I love it. What a cool mix. I love that. So yeah.
Yeah.
And Kathy says I've had many dogs, but there were 3 that I felt knew my soul. Yeah, and they do. Like our animals, they're so I always like to say, like, sometimes our animals know us better than the people in our lives because they're with us all the time and they see all of us and they truly take moments to really see all of us and be present with us all the time, right? They really are just really present, where sometimes people aren't always present.
True. that is true. Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. No, I agree. Animals are a gift to our experience here. So
Yes, they are. They're amazing. Oh my gosh. Well, if you guys have been like inspired, Kathy says yes for sure, Shauna. Yes. I love that. So yes, if you guys can have like, connections in the afterlife that you want to connect with, then definitely feel free to check out the link. I posted it several times in here, so feel free to check out that link and sign up. And then too, like if you're not following me, feel free to follow me. And then if you're not following Lee on Facebook and all of that, feel free to follow him so you can stay connected, because I know he does a lot of lives every week, and he does so much of that. So connected with that. And then every Sunday at 7:00 Pacific Standard Time, I do free little mini animal communication reading. So there's that. And then I hope you have a good night too, Lisa. Have a good dinner. She says she's about to cook. Yeah, right. And Lacey says there's a reason why dogs are their support dogs. I agree. And then Lacey says, I think cats are boss psychic mediums and dogs are at your service, but they know it all. That's funny. I love that, Lacey. I love it. And then Kathy says, thank you for sharing that it's easier for pets to cross over than humans. My kitty Glory is 14 years old, and I'm beginning to feel sad, already knowing that she won't be here forever, but it's comforting to know she won't suffer as bad as I will. Mm-hmm. Oh, Kathy, so much love with that. And a reminder too, like one little thing as we wrap up is my mentor, one thing she always says is if you focus on their absence, you can't be in their presence. And that goes like if they're here in the physical form and they're here in spirit. Like if you focus on, okay, they're going to be gone soon, or they're not here anymore, then you miss out on being in the presence that's truly there all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it's not always easy. It's not always easy. I know before my Luna passed, she would send me little signals and things, so I would know for messages when she did pass. It was really interesting. So it just and no too, for anybody that is suffering a loss, no, there's no time limit on grief, and there's no rules on grief either. We all do it how we do it, and it's you can take a bit from this grief loss thing and a bit from this, but really it's all individual and it's how it works for you. And there's no right, there's no wrong, and yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you, all of you, for just tuning in. I'm so grateful for all of you. I'm grateful for Lee for his time. And then, one last question. Kathy says, can you pick up on types of breeds of animals? So yes, sometimes I have had that happen too. Like my first animal communication session, I had a picture of the dog in my head when I went to meet her, and I was like, oh, cool, this is her. It was super cool. So sometimes I, if I am at an event where I don't have a picture of the pet, I'll, that'll come through. So as we get ready to wrap up here, Lee, what's one final thing that you would love to leave people with, that to remember?
That's a good question. One thing to remember to be present and receptive to spirit. I'm not even going to say your loved one, just to spirit, to your connection with spirit, because you have it. So we all come with it. So yeah, I like that.
Yes, I like that too. And that's so true. We all do have that. And just to be present with that, that's huge, right? It's huge. It's so important. So yeah, so there you go. I love that. And then so Lee's page is under Lee the Medium. So I'll make sure to, I wonder if I'll go back in and share that, or I can actually probably.
I can post a comment actually. Hold on.
Oh yeah, Lee can post a comment with his page in here. So you guys can follow him on there, because he does amazing lives. And your lives are usually, is it Tuesday or Thursday? I can't remember.
I go on Tuesday and Sunday, a little before you now, actually on Sunday. So, because of the time difference. So I do free and donation readings on Sunday now, typically around 7 p.m. Eastern. Eastern Standard Time, and then on Tuesday I go on at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So yeah.
Awesome. I love it. It's so good. Yay. So yeah, people
Yay.
check that out. And I'm going to post Lee's thing here too, because I think you should be able to. Oh, wow. I saw like an old Facebook thing we did. I'm like, wow, it's weird to see yourself when you look different. I'm like, whoa, look at that. Like
I know. I think I was a little skinnier.
Yeah, like when your hair is different or something. I'm like, whoa, I'm like, is that me? That's me. So I'm going to post his thing in here too. And then you'll have,
thank you.
just in case, because I think they can see your comment if they're on my page, but I don't know. So I just want to make sure, because I want people to be able to follow you. So there's that. And all you're so welcome, Kathy, and much love to you too. Much love to all of you. I'm so grateful for all of you. So thank you for tuning in live. Thank you for those of you that listen to the replay, and excited to connect with those of you that are going to be at our event next week. And so just thank you so much. And then we will see you all again soon, because I'm sure I will have Lee on some other time. Who knows when that will be, but I'm sure it'll be. So you'll either see me on my page or him on his page. We'll be connected with you all. And thank you so much. Have a great night.
Bye.
Oh, yes. My link, Lisa. Yes. I can do that really quick. Let me see. I have it right here. And isn't that funny that I forget about that? I'm like, oh yeah, there's my link too. So I'm going to post this right in here. Lisa. So that's my link, which goes to like my link tree, which connects to all my stuff. So there is that. And then my website is just right here too, the ShaunaMarieFisher.com too. So there is that. So yeah, I hope you all have a great night. And I'm really going to sign off this time. That's just kind of the Shauna way of doing things. It's like, okay, that's why it's like, I love the people that I know in my life that like, they're like, okay, like, like, okay, that means to like, not go over in like, to just be like, okay, shoo, like, tuck it in for a second. I'm like, okay. So there we go. So, all right. So you all have a good night. Bye for now. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.